Hello, brothers and sisters. The title of the message today is The Sufficiency Under God's Grace. Number 7, God gave us the Son. Number 2, the Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Jesus gradually began to change his behavior. Jesus became so much embarrassed because he wanted to give himself to his disciples. He wanted to enter into the life of people, but people did not open up the door of their hearts. Their hearts became farther and farther, and they just tried to worship him. Bridegroom came to visit his bride, but if she just bowed down and worshiped every day, what could he do? If the bride offered food, lit the candlelight, and bowed down to bridegroom every day, bridegroom will become just like a ghost. If people lift him as to heaven, just bowed down, Jesus became just like a ghost, Jesus ghost. The people made him a ghost. That's why fortune tellers call him Jesus ghost. Jesus did not come to the earth in order to become a ghost. He wanted to dwell together with us. He came to us to become Emmanuel. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. It doesn't mean just staying together side by side. How can God and people stay together side by side? How can invisible God and man can stay together? It is just people's imagination. How can people sense that God is staying together with them? He is staying with us means that the God and man became one flesh. Therefore, we must learn the fact that our God is the one who keeps coming into us. I used to try to invite him into my life in the past. I used to pray, Jesus, come deep into myself. Don't go out. I feel restless. Don't go out, please. Settle down in me, please. But it was an impossible prayer. I thought I was abnormal. Maybe I'm lacking prayer. Maybe my enthusiasm is lacking. But later I found out I was just normal. Jesus doesn't come in even though I pray. Jesus doesn't go out even though I may pray. Becoming one body is inseparable being. I used to understand Jesus as the one who calmed the sea and the wind in the Sea of Galilee, saved the life of Lazarus, that's all. But later I got the enlightenment. He comes into my destiny. How can I understand such an amazing Jesus as my own destiny? People easily think he and ourselves are so different. So it is very difficult to think he and ourselves are one. We must learn how to discriminate between the two. The person and his work are different. That's why he showed us himself, no matter how hard we try to explain our mind and heart to the person in front of us. But if the person cannot understand, we would say, I want to take out all the organs inside of myself and want to show you. We will beat our chest and say, why can't you understand me? I want to open up my chest and take out my heart and show you. Maybe then you can understand my heart. The reason Jesus went to the cross is the same thing. Why did Jesus went to the cross? When Jesus walked on the water, suppose everyone accepted him as their own destiny, he didn't need to go to the cross even. But after he walked on the water, the distance between Jesus and his people became even farther. If Jesus expressed this way, they misunderstood that way. If Jesus expressed that way, they misunderstood this way. Eventually, he had no other way. he went to the cross at the end. He had no other way but through the cross. Disciples thought there could be many other choices, but why did he go to that way? Disciples just thought about recovering the kingdom of Israel, but the path of Jesus was not the path of recovering the kingdom of Israel. His path was just the path of his death. Disciples thought about Jesus so pitiful and regretful. From 14th chapter book of John shows us that clearly there were so much obstacles in the conversation between Jesus and his disciples. They couldn't communicate each other. Two trains were running the wrong trails, which could not meet each other. They were talking about something that were entirely different. Jesus had no other choice but to go to the cross because of his disciples. Matthew chapter 26:36, it said, Jesus and his disciples reached a place called Gethsemane. It means that every procedures reached to Gethsemane. His life on the earth made them reach there. The final consequence made them reach to the cross. He did not intentionally go to the cross, but he had no other choice but to go to the cross. According to an old Korean saying, when a horse is born, you must send it to Jeju Island, a famous horse breeding place. And when a baby is born, you must send him to Seoul. It means that if you want that baby rise in the world, get a high position in the society, you must send him to the center of Korea. If the baby lives in the countryside, it's difficult to get a high position in the government. The reason Jesus reached to Gethsemane is that he led his life in such a way. Jesus wanted to show himself to his people, and that kind of consequence reached to the Gethsemane. The purpose of Jesus was to show himself to his people. After understanding this, I discovered an amazing fact, that Jesus, who I used to believe was not the true Jesus. If you read the Bible in the profound way, we can discover something that is so contradictory. The one who fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread became so different at the last position, saying, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. At the Mount Gethsemane, we became so confused. He used to feed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But why did he become such an entirely different person? At that position, he said, Father, not according to my will, but let Father's be fulfilled. And he said, could you men not watch me for 1 hour? He asked Peter, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but your will be done. Jesus, who fed 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and walked on the water, how could he say, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but your will be done? Disciples were completely disappointed right here. Jesus was an entirely different person. He was not the person who they understood, respected, and expected with their dreams. That's why they were sleeping when Jesus, being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Even though Jesus told them, stay here and watch me, but they fell asleep again and again. When Jesus prayed, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours will be done. But disciples were sleeping. People think disciples were very tired. That's why they were sleeping. No matter how much they may be tired, how could they fall asleep in such a critical moment? Nobody was staying awake. Why were they sleeping? In so many Korean churches, they pray so early in the morning, sometimes 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., as they take part in the early morning prayer meeting at the church every day. Did disciples have less enthusiasm than these Korean people? No. Disciples were exhausted in their mind and heart as they followed Jesus. They could never understand Jesus. Nothing that they dreamed of were fulfilled, but those unexpected things were happening. Jesus was going through the path which was entirely different from the expectation of his disciples. They could not understand Jesus at all when he said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Why did he say, "Let us pray together"? Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. They really couldn't understand why. As they really could not understand what Jesus said, there was no other way but to fall asleep. Even though Jesus tried to wake them up, but they had to sleep. Finally, at the court of Caiaphas, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. I really don't know about him. Eventually, as they really did not know and understand Jesus, they left him and denied him. I myself finally met the same kind of man right there. I am the same kind of man who will say, "Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me," if I face the same environment like Jesus. But ultimately, I have no other way but to say, "Yet not my will, but yours be done." I thought it was just the decision of Jesus. But later I found out that anyone cannot say, "I want it according to my own will" at that situation. At first we may say that, but as time goes by, life cannot become according to my own will. As time goes by, we learn about the principle of life. We become mature. These days, there is a tendency that so many people have just one child. At first, children think they can lead their life according to their own will, and even they ask for something impossible to their parents, crying. The parents will allow them anything. But as they enter into the kindergarten, they experience the meaning of life. Parents allow anything they ask for, but friends in the kindergarten are different. Sometimes friends beat them up. They experience the bitterness of life there. They learn the lesson. What I understood about my life yesterday is quite different. They slowly learn about the life. There are something that can be done, and there are other things that cannot be done according to my own will. To learn, there is something that cannot be done according to my own will. It is becoming mature, yes. Those people who think that everything must be done according to my own will, their dimension is kindergarten dimension. They must learn the fact that there are something that cannot be done according to their own will. Jesus did not confess with a great courage and decision, "Not my will, but yours be done." He understood about life well enough. That's why he had no other way but to confess that if I'm put that same situation, I'll confess the same confession like Jesus. At that situation, I have no other choice. I learn a lesson. There is something that cannot be done according to my own will. And there is something that cannot be done eternally also. So when we meet God, it is quite natural for us to confess, "Not my will, but yours be done." It was not just decisive confession, it is natural and truthful confession. Such a natural thing, people misinterpreted, degenerated into courage and great faith. Christian leaders degenerated as the great faith and courageous faith, and people cannot follow Jesus because of that reason. That's why no matter how hard we may try, it's impossible. But after understanding Jesus, I found out the fact that it was inevitable for Jesus. Life is an inevitable thing. This is not a matter of willpower, but it is destiny. Jesus told them the parable of foolish rich man, a story in Luke chapter 12, verse 20. One rich man, as he got the bumper harvest that year, and he was troubled as he did not have enough room to store his harvest in the warehouse. But God said, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" That's a famous verse. Jesus told them that parable because he knew about man's life. Life cannot be led according to our own will. Therefore, he confessed to God such a thing naturally before he died. As we understand about him, Jesus and ourselves are not different. Jesus revealed our destiny which was hidden, which I did not know before, which was hidden in myself. I always thought, even though the fact there must be something I could do, but Jesus showed me my original reality. Jesus showed me truthful and original position. I discovered my real being there. That's my real being, my truthful being I discovered. Lord, I believe in you and making a courageous decision. Lord, I can't die for you. That's not real me, not myself. I can carry the cross. I can go to Africa as a missionary. I want to die when you die. If you go to prison, I'll go to the prison too. Everybody may desert you, but I'll never desert you. But that me is not my true me. That's a disguised me, and that's unknown me. Peter gave an oath, "I'll never desert you." Absolutely, everybody may be falter, but I'll never be falter because of you. If you go to prison, I'll go there too. If you die, I'll die together with you. Peter never dreamed of denying Jesus in his life. When Jesus said, "You will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows," Lord, you really don't know my heart. I confess my truthfulness, but what are you talking about? You're really talking something silly. That was Peter's truthfulness. But that was false Peter. What people think it is truthfulness, it's fake sometimes. People think this is my true heart. I'll never do that. They lead their life not knowing they are all fake. One day we'll confess, "I never knew myself. I thought I'll never do that." But Peter never knew he would do that. But that very day he denied really the king. Where can we find the real truth? It is Jesus on the Mount Gethsemane. We reach there someday. Our original being is right there. If we discover our original position, the distance between Jesus and ourselves will become so close. When Jesus walked on the water, the distance was so far off, but on the Mount Gethsemane, the distance became so close. He is myself, I am himself. Jesus said, "I'll be in you and you'll be in myself." How could it be possible? How can he enter into himself, and how can we invite him to ourselves? How can he pull him up to the heaven, or how can he pull him down to Sheol? How can he eat him like the food? How can he bind himself in myself, and he enters into himself? But strangely enough, if we discover ourselves in himself, it is quite natural to say, "I'm in you and you are in me." As we are one, it is quite natural As we are on the same position, it's quite natural to say the same thing. If we are on the same position, we naturally say the same thing. We don't need to train people, not memorizing his words. But if we are on the same position with Jesus, we'll say the same thing. Subsection chief will say the same thing. President of the Republic will say the same thing. Ruling party will say the same thing. And the opposition party will say the same thing among themselves. If people are at the same position, they say the same thing. Why do people say the words of Jesus as God's words? How can the word of people that became God's words? It is because we are at the same position. We say the same thing. Moses said the words of Jehovah, God. How could people say the word of Jehovah? It is because if we're at the same position, we say the same thing naturally. If a woman becomes mother, she will say the words of mother spontaneously. If a man becomes a father, he says the words of father naturally. Words of woman and words of mother are different. If a woman becomes mother, she can say the words of mother naturally and easily. But if a woman wants to speak mother's words, she has to mimic. A woman cannot say the truthful words of mother. Only the one who became mother can say the words of mother. Therefore, mother's words cannot be defined. We cannot define mother's words are lovely or mother's words are merciful. Mother's words may not be merciful, but they are still mother's words. Mother's words can be merciful, of course, generally. Mother can call her child, you jerk, you puppy. Whatever the words may be used, they're still mother's words. In Chola province in Korea, they call little children as a cute puppy. But through common sense, how can he call human being as puppy? It is an insult, but actually they are just using it to express their love. If the position of man is the same, they use the same expression. Meeting Jesus at that position is the meeting Jesus at an ultimate position. At that position, we finish up everything. We die at that position. We intently and we try to die, but we cannot die. Discovering the position of Jesus, confessing, not my will, but your will be done. This is the true position of dying. If we discover our true being, we are dead people toward old man. The man who gave an oath, I'll never deny you, even in the place of my death, will die together toward that man. Everyone may be falter, but I'll never falter toward the one who used to confess, I'm dead toward that person. I can do something, that man is dead, and I can't do anything, that man is living. That's why we confess, when Jesus died, I died too. When he was crucified, I was crucified too. Paul said, I was crucified with Christ. When Christ was crucified, when was Paul crucified? Did Paul meet Jesus? No. But Paul met Jesus at that position. When Jesus died, he too died together. He himself was revealed as a dead man. When Peter gave an oath, we also gave an oath. We agreed Peter as one of Jesus' disciples. That's quite natural for you. We said that in our hearts. We were living together with Peter. When Peter denied Jesus, we also denied Jesus. When Peter went back to the Sea of Galilee, we also went to the Sea of Galilee to catch fish. Those people who came out in the Bible are representing ourselves. Disciples were just country boys who were living near the Sea of Galilee, but they were representatives of all mankind. Disciples, those truthful people who could not tell a lie, were chosen by Jesus as his disciples. Peter did not tell a lie. His words were truthful words for himself, but he did not know himself. I'll never deny you, even I may die. But he said, I really don't know him. Both words were truthful words. He said, let's go to Galilee to catch fish. It was a truthful words also. He was a truthful man himself, but he did not know himself, which is fake. We followed Jesus along with Peter. We gave an oath just like Peter. We denied Jesus just like Peter. And just like Peter, we met resurrected Jesus again. Jesus died in the place of ourselves. How could he die in the place of ourselves? Jesus died in the place of ourselves. Doesn't mean that he worked something for us. With his destiny, he replaced our destiny. He replaced our truthfulness with his truthfulness, and he replaced our death with his own death. Peter denied Jesus, but he replaced my truthfulness with his truthfulness. What's the relationship between Peter and ourselves? But that Peter was myself. But that man was me before he came to gather man. Before I was discovered on the cross, I was that very Peter. As I led my life, Peter was living. He was living that type of life in place of me. Therefore, Peter was living at that time, but he's living now, even today. Jesus was living at that time, but he's living even now. In Hebrew chapter 13, verse 8, it said, Jesus Christ is the same today, yesterday, and same forever. He's living always. As we met him, we found out that he was myself, hidden me, unknown me, lost me. I was deceived by Satan, and I was taken by Satan, but we got back the lost me in Jesus Christ. Thank you. Hallelujah. May God bless every one of you. Thank you. Thank you again.